Hey guys, it's Mike from BlindsOnline.com, and today we're going to talk a little bit about plantation shutters. Plantation shutters are a beautiful window treatment. However, they can be a little complicated. What I'm trying to do for you guys is make it as simplistic as possible. So we're going to offer our shutters two ways: for inside mount, meaning inside the window frame, and outside the window frame. We're first going to discuss how to install inside mounted shutters. Now, inside mounted shutters are going to require a minimum of 3 inches of mounting depth. Okay, depth being from front of the window casing to back of the window casing. If you have less than 3 inches of depth, we're automatically going to switch gears to an outside mount shutter. So that's another video, all right? Inside mount, if you feel you have enough depth and that's the route you'd like to take, there's one important feature that you must know up front, and that is if you have tilt-in windows, once the shutters are mounted inside the window frame, the windows will no longer tilt in. Something to remember. Okay, if you want your tilt-in windows to function, again, switch gears to outside mount. Okay, that being said, once the shutters arrive, you're going to receive 2 of these. These are what we call hang strips. Okay, the hang strips get mounted to the side of the window frame, and then the shutter panel hinges off of the hang strip. You're going to receive 1 or more panels, depending upon how you've configured this window at checkout, and we'll discuss that in a bit. You're also going to receive 2 what we call light strips. Okay, the light strip gets mounted at the bottom of the window frame and the top of the window frame, and they serve 2 purposes. One, they are going to have the magnetic catches on them so that when you close the panels close nice and tight. And the second reason for those is to block light on the top and bottom so you don't have too much light coming in from the top and bottom. Okay, that being said, once you unpack everything and you're ready to go, you're going to grab one of your hang strips, okay, and place it to the side of the window frame just like so. Okay, alrighty. You want the hinge part, the little round part of the hinge, to face as far forward as possible, so it's just protruding in front of the opening. Okay, if you recess this too far back, your panel's not going to swing open all the way. So make sure that this little doodad here, the rounded part of the hinge, is just in front of the casing, just as you see it here. Okay, and we want that to be even from top to bottom. Once you have that lined up, the screws that we provide, okay, we've pre-drilled some holes on the side, and these screws, okay, go through the holes and into the side of the window casing. So I've made this a little bit, I've prepared this ahead of time just to speed things up a bit, but the most important thing is once you drive that center screw, before we drive any additional screws, we want to make sure that this thing is level also, that it's set back the same distance on top that it is on the bottom. Okay, so that when we go to install the panel's sitting nice and straight. Okay, now that we have that center screw in, we're going to drive the bottom screw, drive the top screw. Okay, now your hang strip is in place. You're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. I've already done the right side just to speed things up a bit, but nothing special about it. You're going to install it the same way. Once your hang strip is in place, you'll take the panel. Very important, mouse hole always facing up. You'll notice the bottom doesn't have a mouse hole, only the top part has a mouse hole. So if you're wondering which panel goes on which side, just look for the little mouse hole. Okay? Place your hinge into the hinge. We're going to supply you with enough hinge pins for each hinge that we've pre-installed on your shutters. These hinges will already be installed once you receive your panels. Okay, set those hinge pins in just enough so that it'll hold the panel in place. And once that panel is good and secure, you can push the hinge pin all the way in, just like so. And guess what? You've mounted your first panel. All right, duplicate that on the other side, what we just did, and then install your light strips. Okay, light strips are going to fit between the 2 hang strips, just like that. Your magnetic catches are in the center, You're going to drive the 2 screws that we provide. Depending upon the width, there may be more than 2. You'll drive those screws down into the bottom of the frame, just like we're going to do it right here. And your light strip is installed. Do the same exact thing for the top light strip, okay? Once those light strips are installed and you've duplicated the installation of the panel on the right side, you're going to close your panels. Make sure they align properly. Look at that center line. Make sure that the amount of space on top matches the amount of space on the bottom. If that's not the case, okay, these hinges are all slotted. If you look closely, you'll see these hinges are slotted on both sides. These hinges will allow the panel to shift in and out. The inside hinge is going to allow the panel to shift up and down. Okay, so it is, if your window isn't perfectly square, it's going to require a little finagling on your part. There isn't any exact science to this. It's a matter of just moving the panels in and out, up and down, until they're in the correct position. Once you see you have a nice even center line, at that point you'll take the small screws that we provided and fill the additional hinge holes that are open. Okay, you'll see that we've left a few holes in the hinges blank. Those are to lock the hinges in place. So once you have your shutters set, and not before, and they're closing nicely, they're even on top and bottom, you'll install those additional screws in those holes, and that'll lock those hinges in place so they're no longer going to allow the shutter panels to move around. So important, do that last, because once you put those last screws in, the shutters are non-adjustable. Okay, so that's really all there is to the installation. As far as selecting the type of panel, we do offer a few different options. One option being hidden tilt. Okay, hidden tilt means that we have eliminated the tilt bar, and in order to tilt your louvers open and close, you simply just move one louver, and all the louvers move at the same time. Okay, so that little hidden tilt mechanism on the back is what creates the louvers opening all at the same time. And this panel is also showing you a second option, and that's the 3.5 inch louver. We've installed the shutter panel with a 2.5. This is a 3.5, and you can see the 3.5 inch louver allows for a little more view through when the louvers are open. So if you have a larger window and you're looking for a little bit more outside view, then the 3.5 inch louver might be a good choice for you folks. Okay. One last option we do offer, and that's called the divider rail. The divider rail is a 3-inch solid piece, okay, that we install smack dab in the center of the panel. What that does is it allows you to operate the top louvers. Okay, in this case, remember the mouse hole has to be on top. Okay, so these are your top louvers, independent from the bottom louvers. Okay, so if you want additional privacy while you're in a room, you can close off the bottom, still have the top open for light, and that's what the divider rail does. If you don't select divider rail, you're going to have a continuous panel of louvers, just like you see here in our sample. Okay, so those are your different options that are available for inside mount shutters. The other thing we're going to ask you for at checkout is the configuration of the panels. We can only make a panel a maximum of 30 inches wide. That's one panel, cannot be made wider than 30 inches. So if you have a window that's 30 inches or greater, that's going to require multiple panels. If the window is 30 inches or less, you still have the option of using more than one panel, but that's up to you. Okay, so when you check out, you're going to be asked, how many panels do you want for that opening? You have a choice of 1 panel, 2 panels, or if the window is super wide, you could have up to 4 panels. If you have 4 panels, okay, you have to also let us know how you want them to open. Typically on a 4-panel installation, we'll have 2 panels on the left, 2 panels on the right, and the 2 panels on the right will bifold into one another, and then those 2 panels will swing to the right. Same happens on the left, the 2 panels swing to the left. If you choose one large panel, then of course you just have to let us know if you want it to swing left or swing right. So when you're at checkout and it asks you for the configuration, it'll say 1 panel, it'll ask you left or right, 2 panels, left or right, meaning that the left goes left and the right one goes right. If it's 3 panels, you have a choice of 2 panels going to the left and 1 to the right, or vice versa. Okay, if you have any questions related to the configuration, you can always call us at Blinds Online, and we'll be happy to guide you through it. That's really the gist of a basic inside mount shutter. Hey guys, Mike from BlindsOnline.com, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to install your outside mount shutters. So after you've watched the measuring video, you've determined that you want to mount your shutters outside the frame. When the shutters arrive from the factory to your home, you're going to receive what we call a 4-sided frame. You're going to have a left side, you're going to have a right side. How do we know the difference between the left and right side? Well, the top side of the frames will always be cut on a 45-degree angle, as you can see. The bottom, always going to be straight cut. Okay? So if you want to know what side's on the left, your 45-degree angle should taper toward the inside of the window, just like these two right here. All right? Once you have your 2 frames, your left and right side, you want to find the top part of the frame. The top part of the frame is this guy right here, and that's going to fit on top of those 2 pieces. Alrighty, top part of the frame, you've got your 2 little hinge plates here, so when the panels close they attach, and then the bottom part of the frame, which is going to look like a little windowsill. The little windowsill is going to attach to the bottom part of the frame, and once this is all assembled, you'll have what's called a 4-sided frame. Okay, we're going to assemble this frame, and then we'll talk about how it all goes together. Hey, I'm down here. Come on down. All right, we're going to get down and dirty on the floor, guys. We want to assemble this frame on the floor. So we called it a 4-sided frame. When we're all said and done, we want to make sure that this thing has 4 sides. I flipped it on its back side, so we want this flat, smooth side of the frame facing up toward the ceiling. Okay, we want our top bar and our miters to meet, and we want our bottom sill plate to line up with the flat edge of the frame. Now I've assembled 1/2 of this frame just to speed things up a little bit. We're going to show you how to do this on the opposite, on this side. No need to do the other side, it's already been installed. So we're going to line up the miters. Okay, we want these miters to be as perfect as can be. And we're going to take the Hoffman keys that we supply you guys with. One is a little bit larger than the other, as you can see. Look for the deeper of the 2 holes, which in this case is the top hole, this guy right here. Fit the Hoffman key into the slot and just tap it in a bit with a hammer. Okay, don't go all the way in until it's nice and aligned. Okay, take the smaller Hoffman key, fit it into the small hole, and tap it in. Okay. Once she looks nice and even and you run your finger on there, it feels real smooth, drive that baby in until she's all the way in, and do the same for the small one. Okay? Peel off any of these shavings, alright, and just make sure that the alignment is perfect. Okay, you've just assembled the top part of your frame. Now we want to assemble the bottom part. The bottom part is our sill plate. It's going to act as a little mini windowsill. And the bottom part of this is pre-drilled, okay, for these long black screws that you'll also be provided in your kit. Okay, start the screws off by hand turning them and then just drive them into the bottom of the frame. Now we've drilled a pilot hole into this side of the frame so that this screw should go in easily. Okay, make sure it's snug it up real tight, just like that. Do the same for the second screw. Alright, once you have your 4-sided frame assembled, we'll flip it up. And now she's ready for mounting. Okay, now we have our 4-sided frame assembled and it's ready for installation. Remember, the top part of the frame, okay, has the little beaded edge. The bottom part looks like a little windowsill. Okay? Alright, let's place this on the wall. Now, we're either going to mount this directly to the wall or to the window molding, depending upon how you guys have configured this shutter based on our measuring video. Okay, we want to make sure that the top part of the frame and the bottom part of the frame are overlapping the window evenly, And I always like to start with the screws on top. Now I've started these out. These are the screws that we do provide you. You're going to need one of these little funky hex head bits if you're going to use these screws. You can also use regular sheetrock screws with a Phillips head if you prefer, but these are just a little bit neater and cleaner, and they are supplied with the shutter that we send you. So we're going to always start by driving that center screw. What that does is it gives us a little flexibility to shift the frame right or left, okay, and make sure that it's even. I'd recommend placing a level on top and a level on the side to make sure that this sucker is level before you actually put any other screws into the frame. Okay, for the sake of keeping things moving along, we're going to assume that this frame is level. Okay, and I'm going to drive home some of these screws so that we can continue the installation. Now, what we'd like to see is these screws being driven into the wall of the window frame all around this frame to give it a nice solid mount. Okay, I'm going to leave these out for now because I like to sometimes use this frame as an adjustment before I actually put the final screws in. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a panel, my left panel. How do I know it's the left panel? Well, the mouse hole always has to be on top. Okay, it's hinged on the left. My mouse hole's on top. Must be the left panel. Fit that into the hinges. Okay, we're going to supply you with the correct number of hinge pins to attach the shutter to the frame, just like so. Just slip it right in. Okay, we're going to slip this hinge pin in. And last but not least, we'll slip that hinge pin in. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the other side. We have our right panel, mouse hole on top, hinges on the right. Okay, we're going to slip that panel into the hinges, place our hinge pin in, and sometimes it's best to have a second person help you with this. This is not my first rodeo, so I'm a little bit used to doing it. If it's your first time, please have a partner help you out. It will definitely go a long way. Okay, once your two panels are installed, what we want to do next is close them up to make sure they're closing evenly. These panels seem to be fixed perfectly. We have a nice even space between the two. Our spacing on top and all around appear to be even. Now, if this was a little out of square, the reason I left the screws out on the sides and the bottom is so I can shift the frame left or right. And if you notice, by doing that, the panels on top are shifting higher and lower. Okay, see what's happening as I move this frame left to right? It's just a little trick of the trade, and it allows you to adjust these panels so that they're just right. We want them even just like that. Okay, once you get those two panels even, we want to lock that frame in place. So we're going to open this up. Okay, I'm going to take a screw, just a single screw, I'm going to hold it in place, and I'm going to drive that guy in there so that this frame doesn't shift around anymore. Okay, I'd also, at that point, I'd put a bunch of screws heading down the side, on each side, to secure it. And once you've secured that frame on all four sides, you've got yourself a perfect installation. Okay, here's your louvers open and closed. All right, once you have that alignment set and your frame is secured, okay, you'll have to put the final screws into the hinges. Now, what we have done is we've slotted these hinges for you, okay, on the top and on the bottom, just in case you have to shift a panel up or down in order to get them even. If my little trick doesn't work by shifting the frame back and forth and your panels are still uneven, we've given you the flexibility to loosen those screws, shift the panels up or down, get them even, and then the last thing you're going to do is take these little screws that we've provided with the white heads on them and put it into that hole. What that's going to do is lock that hinge in place. So that's the last part of this installation process. You put those little screws in the holes that are blank. It's going to lock your hinges in place, and from there on in your panels will always close evenly and perfectly. Now these panels are rabbited. What does rabbited mean? It doesn't mean a rabbit came out of a hole. It means that we have a little groove on each panel. Okay, when we close these panels, there is a method to the madness. We need to close this one that has the lip on the inside before we close the one that has the lip on the outside. Okay, and that is there to help block some of the light that comes through. Alrighty, so that's really it for installing an outside mount shutter. There are some options that we've asked you to select at checkout. One being whether or not you wanted a hidden tilt. A hidden tilt meaning that there is no tilt bar. You'll notice that this panel has a hidden tilt, and by operating one louver, all the louvers operate at the same time. I've also made this panel with a 3.5-inch louver, which is a little bit wider than the 2.5, which is also something you need to select at checkout. 3.5 just allows for a little bit more view through than the 2.5. So if you have a large window and you want to keep the view as wide open as possible, then you might want to select the 3.5-inch louver. The other option that we offer on our website is a divider rail. A divider rail simply separates the top louvers from the bottom louvers by a 3-inch piece of shutter material. Okay, so what that does is allows you to operate your bottom louvers independent from the top. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, let's say you're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner and you don't want folks looking in at you while you're having dinner. You can simply close up the bottom louvers for privacy, keep the top louvers open for light and for view through, and you have yourself a nice private situation. Okay, so that's really what the divider rail is for. It's still one big panel. We just add that divider rail right in the center of the panel. All right, that's your divider rail option. So you are going to be asked at checkout what size slat you want, 2.5 or 3.5. Divider rail is an option, a no-charge option. And then the hidden tilt would be a small charge if you wanted to upgrade to the hidden tilt. And that's it for an outside mount shutter. Any questions, please feel free to call me. My name is Mike at BlindsOnline.com.